Get ready to ignite your Tuesday nights with a show that's as educational as it is entertaining. Welcome to Pleasure Pulse, your weekly guide to the world of sex education. Join Roma every Tuesday night from 8 to 9 p.m. exclusively on Zolized Radio 96.1 FM. It's the perfect way to spice up your midweek routine and get answers to all your burning questions. Whether you're looking for relationship advice or curious about the art of intimacy, Roma's got you covered. Pleasure Pulse, every Tuesday night from 8 to 9 p.m. Only on Zolized Radio 96.1 FM. Don't miss out. Your sex education journey starts this Tuesday with Roma as your guide.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Pleasure Pulse. I'm your host, Roma Richardson, and I'm so happy to have you here with me for another Tuesday night, another conversation about sex and something. As usual, though, before we get into tonight's discussion, we'll take a short break so that you can let everyone know that Pleasure Pulse is live. You can share the link. You can catch us on social media, YouTube, I believe, Facebook, and of course, tried and trusted radio at 96.1. So let everybody know that Pleasure Pulse is live. And then when we come back, we will talk. Stay tuned. Back to Pleasure Pulse. I'm your host, Roma Richardson. Thank you for joining me for another conversation about sex and something. And tonight we're talking about sex and vaginas, specifically the fallacy of the loose vagina. I haven't heard it so much in recent times, but I know it remains an existing point of conversation, point of contention, I don't know, whatever it is you want to call it. And so I wanted to talk about it to at least get us thinking about what we mean when we say certain things, and when we say certain things, where those comments, where those beliefs, where those ideologies come from. With me to discuss this tonight, I have my guest. Please introduce yourself again for those who maybe don't know you, haven't seen you before in Pleasure Pulse.
All right, good night. I'm Dr. Joanne Matthew, and I'm a general practitioner, and I'm happy to be back. It's always good to come and to be on Pleasure Pulse, to share information, health related regarding all things pleasure. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming, and I appreciate your perspectives. One, because you are a doctor, a medical practitioner, yes, but I think you also have good social groundings, groundings in the social thoughts, social conversations, in the culture, where things come from. So in addition to this anatomical conversation, which is actually, maybe a smaller part of it, we're also going to be talking, we'll see what happens. We're also going to be talking about the social part of things. Because I always find it interesting how bodies can be interpreted and defined and pitted in all kinds of ways that are often not medically accurate, sometimes completely divorced from medicine and what is true in that sense. So I'm excited to have this conversation about loose vaginas. So what does it mean when people talk about loose vaginas?
Okay, loose vaginas, I think, is more of a social term or cultural term. It's not really a medical term. So based on what I've heard other persons, mention when they say loose vaginas, they're generally speaking about the vagina being, some say slack or widely open, or basically the opposite of tight, or tight vagina, basically. So that's what a lot of people are talking about when they say loose vagina.
Although we also know, not although, We also know though, like tight vaginas. I think this maybe has come up before. I'm not sure if it's come up before with you. And we'll get to some of the things we've talked about before when we focused on vaginas. But the fact that you bring it up like in opposition to tight, which I think medical sex ed spaces all recognize as often a vagina that is not properly or fully lubricated, ready for whatever insertion or anything. So, like, when we talk about this myth and fallacy of loose vaginas, we're also talking about the myth and fallacy of a tight vagina, because when that is what exists, it's usually a sign of like premature premature activity, a sign that the vagina can take more time to warm up to whatever it is going on. And this idea that like everybody is like it's just
supposed to be.
Right, or is supposed to be, it's just not true. And I mean, when we talked about hymens and the many ways that a hymen can be damaged, or a hymen can not even sometimes exist in the first place, and the idea that at first sex certain things are supposed to have to happen for it to indicate that it was the first time that the person had sex, such as bleeding, or such as, I don't know, whatever you imagine a hymen being perforated or pierced through feels like. We kind of concluded that it's not true necessarily for lots of people, right? So also a kind of myth or fallacy. But anyways, that's me jumping ahead of myself. Can vaginas get loose in the true sense of the word? Is it a medical condition?
Well, the vagina is a tissue that has in a lot of elastic substance in it. And so because of that, it can stretch and recoil. So it can stretch to allow certain things inside of it, for example, a penis, sex toys, fingers, tampons. And after those are removed, it shrinks back into its natural state. The same thing when things are coming out. So, for example, when a baby is passing through the vagina, because of the elasticity, it can stretch to accommodate such a large baby passing out. And then after that, it can recoil back into its natural state. So in that sense, it can become loose technically for a while and then come back in. But I think when people talk about a vagina being loose, they feel like it's permanently loose. But usually the stretching of the vagina is temporary. And shortly after, whatever has been inside of it, it would come back into its normal state. So the idea of vagina being loose and women just walking around with these loose vaginas is really a myth. It's not true. It's not something that happens. And so it's just really something that people made up through their imagination, that, some women vaginas are loose. So the reality is that it is a myth. It is not true.
I think there's also the fact of what happens when a vagina is like fully lubricated and relaxed. And I think sometimes people interpret that like excitement, interest, presence, or whatever as looseness, because you're feeling something that is preparing itself for whatever was coming in or coming out, usually coming in, right? So I think sometimes people interpret that too,
to mean looseness.
like, because it's lubricated, so things are sliding in and out with ease, which is what really should happen if you're, having penetrative sex or using sex toys, whatever it is. That's really what should happen.
So I think what happened is possibly Men may have sex with different women and may have experiences of different vaginas being more receptive to penetration than others, and probably that may lead them to make comparisons that one woman's vagina is more loose than the other. But as you rightly said, sometimes a vagina can expand during arousal. So in preparation for penetration, a woman may become aroused to the point where, as you say, she may become lubricated and the vagina may start opening so that it is more easily receptive for penetration. So it's not that she may be loose like that all the time permanently. It may just be in that moment that, her vagina has opened up because her body is preparing herself for penetration. So some men may interpret that as she's loose all the time, but that is not true also.
I guess we could go more into where this commentary and this
Where it came from.
around loose vaginas came from. I mean, you're in the medical field, no offense to the medical field, but we know that the medical field is still learning. I mean, we're still learning about all bodies, right? But I think especially bodies with vaginas have been critically understudied, critically misunderstood. And that has a lot to do with, who those scientists were, who their research subjects, participants were, where they were coming from ideologically, belief-wise, all of those sorts of things. But yeah, let's talk a bit about where this commentary and discourse come from. What do you think?
I think it may stem from a little bit of what I mentioned before, that, men, for example, may have had multiple partners and have different experiences too with penetration, where some women were more easily penetrated and others there were some difficulty. So that may be one of the reasons. And then there's the idea that women shouldn't have penetrative sex regularly, and by doing so, they increase their risk of loosening the vagina. But that also is a myth. So we know that because of the elastic material or tissue in the vagina always recoils back into its normal state. And so it doesn't matter how often a woman has sex, that wouldn't, cause her vagina to become loose. And it doesn't matter if a woman has sex with multiple partners, that doesn't mean her vagina will become loose either. So I know I have heard some of this discussion, in society coming up. Sometimes people try to degrade women who are very sexually active by trying to mention things that, her vagina must be loose because of how sexually active she is. So, but these are also myths. No, it doesn't really, a woman's vagina doesn't become loose because of how active she is.
So these things are not held up by science.
No.
But they're held up by very persistent social and cultural ideas. I think people also think, I think people have connected it to birth. So, this idea that when a person gives birth, they will immediately snap back, and the expectation that it will be immediate, like the body won't change, the vagina won't change, it'll feel the same. I know you're not an OBGYN, but based on your medical training, you said earlier that, after a baby, it also can go back to its original size. So I think people still think that, after one child, after multiple children, you can never be the same, it can never feel the same, whatever. Is that true?
Well, there is some truth to it in that some women who have given birth vaginally have reported a change in their vagina and a change in their sexual experience with regards to penetrative sex, as well as those who have had multiple vaginal births do experience some change in the, how penetrative sex is compared to what it was prior to delivery. But they do say it isn't a drastic difference. It isn't a big difference. It isn't as if they're walking around with floppy tissue down there. They
A
don't.
wide gaping hole.
Right, that is not true. The vagina still comes back down to its normal state. There may be a mild difference, but it's a difference that most people may not notice. And this again is some women. It's not all women. So there are some women who have given birth vaginally and don't notice any change, and they've had up to 5 children, and they don't notice any change either. So, you can't generalize and say, oh, all women who have had children, and especially those who have had multiple children, have loose vaginas. That is a myth, and they have experienced some change when it comes to having sex. That also is a myth. It may happen to some women, it may not happen to other women. So, but yes, it is important to remember that, having a child, giving birth to a child vaginally, does not automatically mean that there will be changes in vaginal sex and that the person's vagina is loose. So we just want to clear that up. So you don't have to think that about persons who've had children. And for persons who have had children, you don't have to feel that there is some big significant change down there, because everything may still be completely normal.
I kind of want to go there, but I also want to add before we go there that I think there is an obsession with virginity and with virginal people. We want things to feel like it's the first time anything ever went in there ever before, and I don't know that that is the case or should be the case for anybody. I think it places a wild amount of pressure on people who are, whether something is being inserted or you're doing the insertion, for an experience to feel like people have told you an experience should feel, even though every penis is different, every sex toy is, some of them are the same. Every vagina is different, right? So the experience that you're having is always between the 2 people or 3 people or 4 people, 5 people, however many people that are having that experience. And so the definitions that you should use, the metrics that you should use, whatever assessments, should be things that y'all discuss. Like, what do you want it to feel like? If there are, for example, when I was doing some research here, a lot around pelvic floor strengthening and conditions and so on came up. Like, what is the role of your pelvic floor? I don't know if, what I call it, the ab separation. I don't know, like all of those things that could have some impact on your body after it's just been through a traumatic situation, which is giving birth, right? So to expect it to heal, that's why doctors say at least 6 weeks. Before you try to have penetrative sex again, right? To give yourself. And I think people are realizing that even that isn't enough time for many people, right? So it's also about letting go of this obsession with tightness and things feeling virginal, because that's just not true for the vast majority of vaginas and people with vaginas and people with penises too. So I think there's a lot, and also the general attitude towards people with vaginas, the way that people with vaginas are treated. And I think it's anything to disparage people, because even too much vaginal tightness is a condition, right, that people are trying to have solved. So I think there's a lot to think about in terms of where these attitudes and beliefs come from and how we apply them to our own experiences and our own lives and the people around us, sometimes subconsciously. With that, we'll take a short break and then we'll come back and continue talking. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Pleasure Pulse. I'm here with my guest, Dr. Joanne Matthew, and we've been talking about sex and vaginas, specifically unpacking the myth of the loose vagina, which could also be a shock for folks to hear. This might be the first time a conversation like this has come up on radio, but all conversations are important to have here. And of course, the purpose is always education, to correct some of the myths, false ideas, false beliefs that we have around things, and to get us thinking about why we think the ways that we think about some things and where did we get those ways of thinking from. That's a lot to think. Anyways, let's do some talking since you've done some thinking. I mentioned vaginal tightness before we went on break, and I know you wanted to add something about vaginismus. Please go ahead.
Right. So you did mention, there's an obsession about tightness of the vagina, and in some ways, it's understandable, but sometimes it can be taken a little too far. Where persons feel that well-relaxed vagina is problematic,
right,
and a tight vagina is the gold standard.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth is, not only does difficulty during penetration indicate that the person with the vagina is not relaxed, not aroused, but it also could indicate that there is a medical condition called vaginismus, where the muscles of the vagina contract significantly, and this contraction can actually be painful, and it can sometimes even prevent penetration. And so this may happen to some women. It may happen sometimes, and it may happen almost every time they try to have penetrative sex. And I just want to let persons know, if this is the case, where you find it almost it's so painful, it's excruciating to receive intercourse or penetration, that you could actually have this condition, and you may want to see a doctor to find out more about what may be going on, rather than sitting back and assuming that maybe all is well, or maybe it's just a problem with you, maybe you're not relaxed, maybe there's something else more deeper, more concerning going on that may need to be looked into. And for men or the persons who are doing the penetration to realize, this isn't like a prize where you finally find this very tight vagina, and but the reality is it could be a problem. And so it's just to let persons know of this particular condition, and that if it is you are someone who's experiencing it, that they should actually go to see the doctor and get it looked into. So that's what I wanted to mention.
Sorry for having a coughing fit, but what a better time to have it than with a doctor. A doctor in the house. And I appreciate all that you said about vaginismus, because I think too, just like with, a couple of weeks ago, I had some folks on, we were talking about menstruation and what level of pain is normal and what is worth seeking, help for. And it kind of is like, any pain is worth a doctor's visit, worth seeking help for, because discomfort doesn't have to be a life story. Pain doesn't have to be a life story. And I think it's the same with any kind of sex, if it is painful, if it is difficult, if it is uncomfortable, it doesn't have to be, that's just how it is, like you can get support and can get help. You can be directed to resources for things that don't help you to live your best and most fulfilling sexual life. So thank you so much for bringing that in. So yeah, definitely, please, folks, reach out to a doctor if that's something that you're experiencing. They might refer you to a pelvic floor specialist. I think they especially have tools to help. There's so many resources. I mean, on Sex Ed, the show, you watch Sex Ed, the show? Oh my goodness, you have to. I think it's still on Netflix.
Okay.
But one of the characters.
Oh, maybe I have, but go ahead.
One of the characters has vaginismus. So, they're showing us all of the little dilators that they're using, and how you can increase the size and all of those things. That's because the person is desirous of penetration. So you also have to know, like, what you're trying to get into with sex, what you want to get into, or what's trying to get into you. Anyways. Okay. So we've, I think, established that there's a lot of misinformation, misunderstanding, sometimes just a lack of knowledge, because the knowledge just isn't there. People are still learning about the clitoris. People are still learning about the clitoris. And I'm laughing not because it's funny. I'm laughing because this is a part that has been on people's bodies for years, and nobody ever was like,
let's explore.
Let's fully explore it, right? So that has also led, I think, or contributed to, in people's sexual spaces, some people not knowing about the clitoris, right? But we know a lot about the penis. We know a lot about a lot of things to do with the penis, right? But not as much about the clitoris, and that affects like what actually happens in people's sexual relationships. So anyways, how can we combat misinformation and misunderstandings about anatomy, especially anatomy associated with people with vaginas? Well, one, you're being here to correct some of the misinformation.
The only,
Sorry, folks.
I think the only way you can clear up misinformation is to trying to educate yourself, you know. So, you know, you're already doing the first step, you know, listening to this show where you can get education about, you know, different things, pleasure related, sex education. So, you know, whatever means you want to be educated, you can do that, whether it's listening to a show, watching, you know, a video online, on the internet, on social media, reading books, you know, having discussions with persons who are willing to have that discussion with you. That is the only way that you might be able to get this information. And you have to make sure that the information is credible, because if you're just talking to anybody on the road, you know, that is how a lot of false information gets spread, you know. So we live in an age of information. A lot of information is available freely. It's accessible. So, you know, if you want to know, sometimes you have to go and make the effort to try to find this information, because yes, you might hear some credible information on the street, but you may also get misinformation on the street. So you have to, so, you know, if you want certain knowledge, you have to sometime go after it.
Yeah, I'd add too, if you hear something on the street that you're not sure about, look it up, right? Like I you see how Google now gives you, I guess you could call it a synthesis summary of all the Google results. So before you used to type in Google and it would just bring up a list of things, but now it interprets those things and kind of gives you a response. Yeah, AI. Not saying that that is necessarily correct, but I think it has helped asking questions.
It can be very helpful.
So you hear something on the road, say, is it true that you could ask Google those kinds of questions and get an answer, right? Is it true that vaginas, blah, 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 right? Is it true that penises, blah, 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 blah? Is it true that women, you know, because it also can respond to questions about behaviors and social practices and so on. So it doesn't have to be all like tangible things. So definitely look up something if you hear something on the road. Chances are, you know, you're receiving a lot of information from the people around you, but you don't know where they're getting the information from,
right,
and whether or not they were fed wrong information. So look it up when you hear something. Ask Google random things too, and also talk to people around you. Talk to your partners. Talk to the people that you're having sex with, right? Like.
And you can talk to your doctor.
And you can talk to your doctor. You can talk to your doctor about anything,
if it's
right?
health related, they would be able to answer your
Even
question.
if you're there for a cough, right?
Just say, that's a question. By the way, I heard this, you know, what do
While
you
I'm
think?
here, while I'm here and we still within the time for the $100 or whatever it is, rapid fire questions. Doctors are okay with that?
It depends on the circumstances, but usually if it's a one question with a one, it's okay.
We leave it. Not rapid fire. One other question. Maybe you can book a follow-up specific to that, or maybe you can ask the doctor which kind of doctor could help you with something else that you're experiencing. Anyway, yeah, so, you know, doing our own research, being very mindful and discerning around the sources of information as well. As you said, there's an abundance of information online, but all of it ain't right. All of it ain't accurate. A lot of it is people talking their opinions too, right? And not facts.
And so scrutinizing the source of your information is also important. So, if you're looking for medical information, if it's coming from a doctor or a hospital or, a university, something like that, more than likely it's more accurate compared to if it's just John the chef or whoever.
Compared to if it's just a man with a podcast, like,
Exactly.
sorry, no offense. But that's also an important, I think, point to note, because I think with the rise of Manosphere podcast, Red Pill podcast, Incel podcast, you have a lot of people talking about who deserves partnership, who deserves love, and they are coming with specific ideas about women especially. So what they say about things like vaginas and sex and so will include
Some of these myths.
and some of these own problematic concerning ideas. So please be mindful.
The same misinformation you can hear on the street, you can sometimes find
Here
it online.
So because it's online, it mean it's true.
Correct.
Right? Like, I have a TikTok account. I can say anything I want
Exactly.
on there. And for a lot of things, your videos don't get taken on. A lot of misinformation is out there. So just be careful. And I would, recommend again that you talk to people in real life, in your life, especially people with vaginas. Now, last time you were here, we talked about the myth of virginity and virginity checks, issues like that. Do you also see a concern from partners, I don't know if from parents, from people themselves about loose vaginas? Have you had a patient come to you about that? And I mean, we talked about birth as one of the life events that could affect how the vagina feels, but are there other events that people think affects it but don't really? I mean, you did say people think like having multiple sexual partners, whether that is at the same time or over time, and different things, maybe the first part, do you see a concern from partners, from parents, that people themselves about their vaginas?
No, I've never really seen anyone concerned about, the vagina being loose. I guess because it's just a social construct, but it's just a conversation that people have. This person's vagina must be loose, but not really coming
more like
for
gossipy.
medical attention regarding that. What I have seen in that may be close to a loose vagina is something called prolapse, like vagina prolapse, uterine prolapse, bladder prolapse, where someone may notice something is inside the vagina and it's like kind of like tissue coming out of the vagina, and that's because there's been some weakness in the pelvic floor, muscles, ligaments, things that hold up the pelvic floor, and so things are coming out of the vagina, and so you usually need treatment for that. And the easiest way would be something like a pessary to hold up the contents of the pelvic floor so that the vagina can maintain its normal patency. And for some persons, they may need surgery as a permanent solution, but pessaries are usually very helpful. But that's the only thing medically I see, that people don't really use the word loose vagina. They may say the vagina come down or something come down, and it's more common in elderly women persons and maybe persons who may have had a lot of children, and so that the pelvic floor muscles may have been weakened, maybe like 5, 7 children or even more. They are also at risk even in their younger age, but I find it's more common in older women. So that's the only thing in terms of like a medical condition close to a loose vagina that people present for.
And you said that pessary is a temporary
Right, temporary, because it's not like you put it in and you leave it forever. It has to be changed regularly. Yeah.
Okay. Very interesting. All of the things that can happen in there, that can and do happen, and the things that don't really happen and are just conversations and gossip and ways to shame people for different things, especially for sexual activity or assumed sexual activity. Because a lot of times too, like when we're talking about people being around or this, we are not thinking about them factually. We can't call nobody name factually. We just making assumptions. Maybe we see the person dating a lot of people. Dating doesn't mean having sex. But if they choose to have sex, so what?
It's their choice.
People,
as long as they're healthy and
as long as they have the
practicing.
information, they have the resources that they need to keep themselves and their partners
safe
as possible. You know, like
we are all, entitled to that choice.
we are right, and we all are entitled to. We all deserve pleasure. We all deserve to pursue the things that make us feel good and the things that help us to achieve whatever it is we want to achieve. We all deserve to enjoy life. Yeah. Okay. Wait, I said there was something that I wanted to ask about, but now I don't remember what it was.
Well, but hopefully you do remember. But
Yes, go ahead.
I take this moment to talk about menopause and how menopause can affect the vagina and, penetrative sex and pleasure. So, during menopause, there's a decrease in the hormone estrogen, and that can lead to decrease in lubrication and sometimes thinning of the vagina as well. And so persons, at that stage may have to rely on using more lubricant to, that is, to help to increase, pleasure, to make the activity as pleasurable as possible. So that's something to be noted. It's not that, the vagina is more loose. It's just that the vagina walls may become more thin and more dry. And so, they may need more help at that time. Sometimes taking hormones can also help to do that. But the easiest and simple way would be to just increase the amount of lubricant you're using to, make sure that the activity is as pleasurable as possible.
Good point. I think, too, a good reminder that we could all be using lube. I've been in places where we were all encouraged to use lube. I think sometimes we think, lube is for if, the natural lubrication, biological lubrication doesn't happen. But it's like...
And sometimes people think the more a woman is lubricated, or the lack of lubrication means she's not aroused, but that's not true. Some people just produce more lubrication naturally than others, and so the lack of natural lubricant or moisture that the woman is producing doesn't mean she's not interested, doesn't mean she's not having a good time, doesn't mean that you're doing a bad job. Some women just need more help, and that's okay.
And that's it.
And if you don't, you increase the risk of the process being painful for her and causing friction and tears and, trauma to the vagina. So please don't do that. Make sure you're using lubricant, if necessary, and, good lubricant and not just, actual lubricant,
Heavy
not
oil.
And some people like saliva, and people use lotion and Vaseline. Lubricant is the best. It's actually designed to mimic the natural lubricant. That it's more safe and less likely to cause irritation and allergic reaction down there. So lubricant Because this is might be the opposite problem of someone considered to have a loose vagina. They may not be as aroused or dilated, and the lubricant can be helpful in that moment.
Yeah. I think normalize lube, right? The attitudes, perception. Lube needs what it is, what do call it, in marketing, where it's like branding. I don't know what it is, but we need to maybe rebrand lube as something that people just have
in a more
that
positive
that you
way.
can just reach for, that it doesn't indicate a lack or an issue or something. Like, we just use it because there are many ways that it can enhance
Yes.
the sexual
So we should
experience.
think of it as an enhancer,
Right.
So normalize lubricant.
Yeah, normalize lubricant. It can help a lot, as you said. Sometimes it's about like not being in the mood or feeling it or whatever, especially if you're interested in going for an hour plus. Like, after a while, the body
You need some assistance.
some help, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not as much as it was at the start, but it can also help to provide that ease to keep going if you want to keep going, right? And not rely on saliva or other things that really are not
Could be
meant-
problematic.
could be
for the
problematic
vagina.
and are not meant for that or to be used in that way. So yeah, I would encourage you all. I remember the clinic used to provide lube too, like little tubes of. I think so. I have to check that. But lube is, I think, kind of inexpensive, so you can access lube.
It's available
different
and affordable.
Pharmacies, yeah, and you don't have to use a whole bottle at once, and there are different types of lube too, so shop around, find what works for you. And even if your vagina is as wet as the Atlantic Ocean, you can still
You can still benefit
use
from extra lube, yeah.
Yeah, and to see what it does, because like we said, there are different kinds of lube. They're warming this. So you go choose the lube based on the feeling that you're going.
They have different scents.
Wherever you're going for, you have a lube to match it. Now, finally, my question, because people like to be like, equivalent, what's the other side, blah, blah, blah. I don't think that there is equal concern about conditions of the penis and the structures close to the penis, like sagging, like blood supply, like issues with erections. Should there be concerns around that, since we're talking about vaginas and all of the states that they can come in? What about penises?
Right, so penises do have their own set of problems, and erectile dysfunction is one of those problems that, persons with penises may experience. And although it may be more common in older persons, it could happen in younger persons. Sometimes, persons with penis may have difficulty getting an erection, and sometimes they may have difficulty maintaining one. So they get one easily, but it doesn't last throughout the whole session. And sometimes they may get it, in some sessions, and some persons, they get it in every single session. So that's one issue, and there are many different causes that, it usually is a sign of a health problem, but there are other, social reasons, anxiety, pressure to perform, those kind of things. So, yes, there are issues that persons with penises may experience during sex as well.
Thank you. And the reason I asked the question, not to be like devil's advocate, I'm like, what about, but just to show that, one, bodies can experience a range of conditions. And two, a lot of these, sometimes the things that we think about as conditions are not really. They're more like social and cultural, or they're more conditions that exist in the social and cultural realm more than the anatomical, biological realm. And that everyone is unfortunately subject to the scrutiny around bodies, around what people do during sex. So it's, I guess, my way of plugging it in to say, let's ease up on the vaginas, because penises got their own things.
Have their own problems as
got
well.
their own things too, right?
Yes,
so
yes.
for all of us, and it's just creating anxiety when it comes to sex, because one person they're like, oh, is he gonna fall? And the other person is there like, am I gonna be able to perform, stand up? Am I going to get... And one time you were here too, and we talked about hygiene and smells. So like you throw that in the mix, and I'm seeing so many videos about like people with vagina sitting and like a little baby there, and they're like, and then everybody finds it funny, and I just like, it's just too much. It's just too much, I think there are times we should be able to identify, like, when is this time for me to go to a doctor about something? At one point, do I think that this might be a medical condition? And maybe that's where you start, right? Maybe you go and you say, this thing is happening to me. I don't know if it's medical condition or not. I want to rule out whatever so that I can know, okay, it's not medical. It's in my head. It's in everybody else's head, and they're projecting it onto me, whatever it is. But I think that we have to get to a space where we like, bodies do what bodies do. There's no, I don't think, like, set.
They're not perfect.
Specific way where that bodies operate, bodies look different, and bodies function differently at different times, over time. This Tuesday, you could have been next Tuesday. Because life happens too, right? Life always affects what our body is. You see me taking in just now we were coughing fit. I didn't plan. But I don't even know what it is. But what can you, like, you just, okay, is this something I need to look into? Because this is the second time it's happened, right? Like, am I inhaling something? Whatever it is, right? But also giving yourself space to understand that sometimes your body will feel a little pain. Sometimes your vagina will be a little dry. Sometimes it'll be extra wet and it'll feel like, ooh,
what's going on?
Interesting. Right? Like, bodies just do what bodies do. Anyways, those are my final words. Do you have any in the minute left? No?
Just to remember, that this, just to reiterate that, this whole idea of the loose vagina is all a myth, and that we should not judge people and discriminate people because of, certain lifestyles that they live, and assume that they have certain medical conditions when that doesn't even exist. And so that's my final point. And if you think that you have a medical condition, that, don't be ashamed, go and, see your doctor and make sure that it is okay.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely love the part about not shaming others and not shaming ourselves, minding our own business and being supportive outside of that. Thank you so much for joining me for Pleasure Pulse. Music Fest is this week. Normally I would have talked about Music Fest, but I like this stuff. Maybe next year with Music Fest. I hope all of you are going to Music Fest. Be safe. Remember to go, with your body system. Don't watch what people, you watch your drinks being made. Be careful. Look out for each other.
And if you have to have sex, remember to have safe sex.
Yeah.
Depending on, the circumstances.
Right. All of that. And just enjoy yourself in a way that you'll be happy about the next day. or the days after. What about you? We'll find support for if you make a mistake. Thank you for joining us as usual. I wish you a pleasurable evening and I'll say good night to you. Bye.